Olá, meu nome é José Roberto, eu sou o atual presidente da Associação Brasileira de Planetários, ABP, e o vídeo que trazemos para vocês hoje é muito especial. Hoje, 2 de dezembro, é o Dia da Astronomia no Brasil. A data marca o nascimento de Pedro de Alcântara, o Dom Pedro II, que era astrônomo amador, entusiasta das ciências e patrono da astronomia brasileira. E para comemorar essa data tão especial para nós, disponibilizamos uma entrevista que a ABP fez há algumas semanas com o astrofísico Neil deGrasse Tyson, diretor do Planetário de Nova York. Tyson ficou mais conhecido mundialmente por ter sido o apresentador de 2 temporadas do remake da série para a televisão Cosmos, que foi ao ar originalmente na década de 1980 com o astrônomo Carl Sagan. Mas Tyson tem sido um destacado divulgador de ciência há bastante tempo, e nesta entrevista conversa com o vice-presidente da ABP, Alexandre Sherman, que fez parte da equipe brasileira que revisou o livro mais recente de Tyson, Respostas de um Astrofísico, lançado no Brasil este ano. Confira esta conversa muito descontraída e sinta-se mais perto de Neil deGrasse Tyson. Esperamos que você goste tanto quanto nós curtimos. E não deixe de ler Respostas de um Astrofísico, publicado no Brasil pela editora Record.
Hello.
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 Thanks for being here, Dr. Tyson.
Please call me Neil.
Okay, Neil. So I'm Alex. I'm an astronomer like yourself. I worked for 22 years in the Rio Planetarium here in Rio de Janeiro. And now I'm vice president of the Association of Brazilian Planetariums. And right next to me is Roberto. He's the president of the Association of Brazilian Planetariums.
Nice to meet you.
Hello. Hello.
And not sure if you're aware, we are the largest planetarium community in the Southern Hemisphere. And the second in the Americas. We lose only to the US. So
no, excellent. We know how important planetariums are to introduce people to not only the universe, but science in general. So if you have a strong planetarium community, that can bode well for society.
So thanks for being here. The opportunity arose when you're releasing a new book, and I was part of the team that made the Brazilian edition. So I got my in there with the editor, and I'm very glad you're here with us. And if I may, can I start asking questions, shooting away?
Yeah, sure. Oh, so you're the one who found the 2 errors in the book. Thank you for that. Are you the one who did that?
Yeah, that was me.
So it went through.
Sorry about that.
There are only 2 kinds of books in the world: those that have errors and those where you haven't found the errors yet.
Yes. My editor, I'm a published author here as well, and my editor, she says, the book is never ready. You just published it. You just go ahead and publish it. Because the more you read, the more you're finding things you want to
The more you find, and it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. But, well, I'm glad you took that with a smile. Thank you very much.
Oh no, it's if it makes the book better, yes, go ahead. It's just awkward. We have to go back to the original and all the other translations that didn't catch it. So it will work its way through the system slowly, but it will work its way through.
Okay, good to hear.
Yeah.
So let me start with a pun on words. That how does it feel for you from becoming, you made a transition. You start as an astrophysicist, a person who studies, and now you're a star yourself. How does that feel?
Okay, so in my case, it happened very gradually. Okay, to borrow the physics term, it happened adiabatically. Okay, it was slow and steady, and so it wasn't one of these overnight phenomena. It was every day was an increment of more people who would recognize me in the street, or who would invite me to appear, to give a talk. And so it was, in that way, it's easier to adjust to it. But I would say the biggest feature of stardom, if you want to call it that, is how much more careful I need to be with what I say and how I say it, because it reaches so many more people than if you're just hanging out with friends. And so every tweet, for example, that I post, I think about it way more than most people imagine. Because in that medium, people just fire off comments, and so every word in my head gets analyzed. How will people think about this? How will they interpret it? Can they misinterpret it? Is there a way I can word it to reduce the chance of being misinterpreted? All of this is going on. And when I'm out in public, I have to be a little better groomed, you know, because someone will walk up to me and say, oh, can we take a selfie? And I just have to, I shave a little more often now. And my hair is a little, is a little more presented. So these are features of that state of existence. But otherwise, no, I think I'm the same person.
Well, if it makes you feel better, I did shave to come to you today. I even cut my hair today.
I like your haircut. It's very, very attractive haircut.
Thank you. And talking about what you said, it's like I called you a star, so maybe you're a supermassive star. You leave wrinkles in space-time wherever you go, right?
So I like that. It's a you know, wrinkles in space-time. So I think you want to make sure that if you are going to leave a wrinkle in space-time, that people are better off for it. All right. So if things you say and do, you want it to be infused with wisdom or with insight or with a bit of knowledge that maybe people didn't have before, but they have it now, and they have a new perspective on their life or the life of their country or of the world. So I think there are people out there who leave ripples in space-time that actually leave a path of destruction behind them rather than a path of nurturing or rebuilding. And so, yes, I have an active sense and awareness of, I try to maintain an active sense of awareness of what impact I might have on others. Without it, you're just stomping through a flower bed, right? And without care. And that's messy and disrespectful, and nothing good comes of it. So yeah, this extra added in a sentence, it's I have an extra sense of duty.
And I guess this all grew exponentially after you started doing the Cosmos TV show, right?
No, it was still, I would say it was a linear, you know, there might have been a little bit of an extra bump up, but continuing beyond that, it was all linear. There was no exponential curve at all. So what that said is that the foundations that are behind it that led to me hosting Cosmos in the first place were also part of this visibility. Before Cosmos, I was in many documentaries, and I was invited to comment in the evening news and in morning news. And so there was already a visibility where my hosting of Cosmos for some people was just inevitable, right? So it wasn't, oh, now that really propels them. No, that was just a continuation of an ascent.
That's great. And we are all big Sagan fans here. But you're the only one who is filling his shoes. So how does it feel to be the next Carl Sagan?
So I don't think of myself as filling his shoes, because I know that if I try to fill his shoes, I'll just fail, because that would be me trying to be him. But what I know is that I can be an authentic version of myself, whatever that is. And if that fails, then I failed at just be offering myself. There was a mismatch of who I am and who you want to see. So, but if it succeeds, then I succeed as myself, not trying to fill shoes of others who have left their own legacy and their own memories for people to cherish. I think the association between me and Carl Sagan became stronger when I, in my hosting of two cosmoses, one in 2014, and the next one is this year, 2020. Wow. So that association is real, and it's forever. But beyond that, there are many other people, by the way, who are popularizing science. They have YouTube channels where they do home experiments. They show off their astrophotography. So I'm delighted to declare that the landscape that Carl Sagan cleared, the brush that he cleared away, there are many of us on that landscape right now. And he did it first, and he did it big. And the rest of us are trying to continue a very important tradition to make sure we have a scientifically literate public, especially in a free society where the public votes people into office, they vote for laws that shape the future of civilization, especially when science infuses issues that people need to think about and care about, and which point they need to make decisions that affect us all.
Yeah, I'm going to dive right in. I'm taking your bait because
I'm just talking. Yeah,
I know.
Dangling bait in front of you.
That's just my next question. Actually, it's not my question. It's from a friend of ours, a planetarium here in Brazil as well. Her name is Juliana. She's like a huge fan of yours, and she did this.
Hi, Juliana.
She did this Cosmos marathon when we said we were going to talk to you, and she specifically asked me to ask you about one of the latest episodes of the new iteration of Cosmos, the one you talk about the Anthropocene.
Oh yes,
where you have the memorial with of mass extinctions, and people are drinking water like they're drinking champagne, and that's a very powerful image. But we know that people are not getting the message either from the scientists and nature itself. So as a mass communicator in science, what should we be doing now to avoid this bleak future?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to report that each episode of Cosmos, however bleak the episode begins, you are left with some sense of hope for how we might harness the awesome powers of science and technology in the service of civilization. So we don't just say, we're all going to die, no, we don't say that. We say, if we continue on this path, that's not good. This path will only survive, but we're not going to thrive. And then this other path, there's one where we can embrace the future in a way that is in harmony with the planet, with each other, with all other species. And so the subtitle of the current Cosmos is Cosmos Possible Worlds. I don't know if they will translate that literally in Portuguese, but in English, Cosmos Possible Worlds, which are worlds that it's not just another planet that could be where we live, but it's also possible futures of Earth. Those are worlds unto themselves. So the world, the concept of world is used figuratively here. And so what I can say two things. Have our efforts, yours and mine, been all for nothing? Because it's clear that so much of the world is just ignoring the messages of science. Should we just give up? Or maybe we can think of it another way. We can say, without our efforts, imagine how much worse it would be than it already is. How much worse. And so I don't know which of those is more true. I don't know. But here's something I found quite potent. If you tell people every disaster movie they've ever seen begins with people ignoring the advice of scientists.
That's the perfect line. That's a great line.
Say, well, wait a minute. Yeah, hey. Hey. But I'm reminded of the famous science fiction author, Ray Bradbury, when he was once asked, Mr. Bradbury, why do you write such apocalyptic stories of the future? You know, why do you do that? Is this the future you think is in store for Earth? And he says, no, that's not why I write it. I write it so you will know to avoid them.
That's right on point, but it really doesn't seem to be reverberating in society, because most of the world leaders right now, and I can name at least two in your country and in my country, they are completely science deniers.
Yeah, so I don't think much about leaders as much as other people think about leaders. I think about the people who voted for them, right? So you could say, oh, this leader is clueless, or they don't know, or they don't understand. And well, if you remove them and then you have another election, there's still the matter of all the people who voted for that leader. And generally people vote in line with their own sense of the world. So if you have a leader who's not thinking much about science or doesn't care, chances are everyone who voted for them feel the same way. So as an educator, I feel strongly that I should turn and face, not the leader, I face the people who are doing the voting, okay? And the people about to vote who are yet of age, and say, here is what science is, here's how and why it works, and here's why it matters to your health, your wealth, and your security. And then let people chew on that for a while and think about it. And then when other candidates rise up, it might influence how they think about who they vote for. It might even influence who chooses to run for office. Here in the United States, there is a platform now that several people who are running for Congress are taking, where they say, we are your science candidate. I have a science background, and I'm going to make sure we make the right decisions related to COVID. I'm going to make sure that science education is intact, and I'm going to make sure that we recognize the warnings of scientists with climate change. That becomes the platform of which someone is running for office and taking out advertisements on television. So that's an important change. And that I think it's slow, but it's real. And so, yes, maybe the best days are yet to come, and a movement is underfoot, however slow. And I hope it's just not too late by the time it kicks in.
Oh, it's so great to hear that you are an optimistic about that.
I'm realistically optimistic. That's how.
Yeah, but clearly your journey through this road is you have seen more than we have. So it's good to have this point of view coming from you. Because
and I'll add that this is just if you have time for me to just tell a brief story. We have it's the American Association of Physics Teachers, AAPT. They gave me an award a few years ago, maybe 12 years ago even, that honored my work trying to teach people physics, the physical sciences. And this is an organization that has physics teachers. So there's teachers in teaching colleges, as well as high schools and some middle schools. So everyone has the common objective to teach what physics can do for you as a thinking person in this world. All right. I then gave an acceptance speech, and there was before that, there was a brief discussion of how people were complaining that no one had interest in science, and why, and how come, and what are they doing wrong, and what. And I said, how many of you do not own a television? A third of the hands went up. A third. And then I said, okay, of those who own a television, how many of you hardly ever watch it? Maybe you'll just rent a movie and watch a movie. Half the hands went up again. Okay. So I said to them, do you realize that the people you are teaching watch 30 hours of TV a week? And in some cases, even more? You're trying to communicate with a demographic, your students, without fully understanding what other forces are operating on their capacity to think. And so I encourage them, rather than complain that what they're trying to do isn't working and it must be their fault, I said, maybe it's your fault for not understanding how their brains are wired for thought, without understanding the forces operating on how they think. And so by the way, it got a very strong applause. Some people were still, well, maybe, I don't want them to watch TV. They don't want, well, you don't have that option. In a free society, people will do whatever they want. But when they're in a classroom with you, if you want to be as effective as you can, then you need to factor all of this in. So that's just the backstory for me to tell you that I have embraced, I think, different levels of success within them, but I've embraced multiple platforms of communication. Yes, there's the book. There's some people who are readers, right? There's appearing as a talking head on a documentary. Some people love documentaries. There's as host of my own documentary. Some people like binging on unlimited series documentaries. I post tweets. That happens to be my largest following is in my Twitter stream, where 14 million people pay attention to that, including the press, I will add. Then there's TikTok, which just showed up on the scene, which leans young. Right? Most TikTok users are between 13 and 18 or something like that. That's a whole, you can say, I'm not going to waste my time on TikTok. If you look at TikTok, most people are wasting their time. Okay, I get that. But can you be creative in that medium? Think about it. All right, you can just reject it or realize that nearly 1 billion people are on that medium right now. And so why not try to think creatively about how you might use it as an educational platform? So it's all of these. And the last point I'll make in this, I'm talking too much here, I want to hear more of your questions, is I've agreed to be on so many different talk shows. And my evidence of this is that I steal the coffee mug that has the talk show printed on it. And I have a whole lineup of all, and I look at it, I say, wow, that's a very wide range of talk shows. A conservative talk show, a religious talk show, a science geeky nerdy talk show, a gamers talk show for old people, talk show for young people, talk show for people interested in hip hop music. Okay, I like hip hop, but not at the level of the guests on this show. So I felt a little out of order there. But my point is, when I get these invitations, I then put in some effort to learn who their audience is. And then I'm talking to their audience. It's not just some stump speech that I have, you should like science, and give the same speech every single time. No. At that point, you're lecturing. You're not communicating. And so that's my long explanation for me saying that I think if you want to take this challenge seriously, you need to see all of the platforms on which people are receiving their information. And then you tailor a message that can succeed and thrive in that medium, and then watch people beat a path to your door.
That's a great and valuable lesson. Thanks for that. And
I'm sorry,
especially
that was a long explanation.
No, we are here to listen to you, so
Okay.
don't apologize for talking.
Okay.
The whole point. So don't apologize. But and you've been doing this marvelously, because you really connect to people. Is all that you say, and also your attitude. You have this big smile. So people will.
It's real, by the way. It's,
yeah, I can tell by the laughter, you know. And you get to be familiar to people, you know. People will tend to feel like they know you. So that takes me right to the next question. So people all around the world, mostly in the US, I believe, but all around the world, feels a certain familiarity to Neil deGrasse Tyson. So they just wake up one day and say, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to write him a letter. And when did that start? You know, how many letters do you get, and how many messages or emails and stuff?
yeah, so there's thousands and thousands. There was a day when my email was publicly findable. And so there was a whole flow of emails that came in, and I would get to almost all of them. And I would reserve a certain time in a week or in a day or in a week, and I would reply. Thanks for mentioning this, because I didn't do this consciously, but yes, it turned out that some people wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to write a letter to Dr. Tyson. And it's not just, oh, Dr. Tyson, how big is the sun, or how far away is the moon? Some of these letters predated Google searches, right? So I get some letters that are just, quote, simple science questions that require straightforward answers. By the way, I had a staff who I would hand those questions to, because the questions really weren't to me, Neil Tyson. That category of question was to a learned scientist, okay? And my department has many learned scientists. So they would say, oh, Neil is busy, but here's the answer to that question. Others were, I saw you give a talk, and you mentioned this about your life. Well, you mentioned this about the world, and I've been struggling with these thoughts, and could you shed some light on could you tell me why? And so these are more of a personal nature. And I would reply. And if my reply, at the end of my reply, I said, you know, I put a lot of effort into that answer. Now, I thought a lot about that answer. I'd say to myself, maybe I'll collect this group and publish it one day as a collection of my letters. So over the years, spanning decades, maybe 1 in 10 of these letters would classify in this way, and I put them all in a folder. Then I said, you know, it's time. It is time. And that's why that was my voice in my head. It is time. And so I went through them. There was probably 500 letters in that, and I culled those down to, I think, the best 100. About 100, 110. So in my Letters from an Astrophysicist book, it's got a little more than 100 letters in it that I think best represent the range and the depth and the emotion and the humanity of where people have come from to write me letters. And that's what's collected in this book. So thanks for mentioning it. No, I don't have any active understanding of why people feel that way, feels so comfortable that they would do this. I can guess, but I don't know for sure. I haven't formally analyzed it. I do know that I want people to feel comfortable. I don't want you to ever think that I'm lecturing to you, because if you're lecturing, then you're here and the lecturer's over there facing the chalkboard, talking to the chalkboard as they write. That's not conducive to warmth or empathy. So if I interact with you, even if I don't even see you, it's just through a medium, but I do it in a way where it's what I would want someone to say if we were just sitting down on a couch in front of a fireplace. All right, so it's the fireside chat that, if I were to sort of make a metaphor of it, it's what would you say if you're just sitting at a fireplace in a living room and having a conversation about the universe? or about aspects of the universe that affect you psychologically, emotionally, intellectually. So I'm guessing that that's what has fed this. And in the book, there are letters from prisoners who are active prisoners, and you can see, and here's my prison number. When you write back, reference this number, otherwise I won't get the letter. And also there are people who are conflicted between their religion and the science they learn in school. And there are others who other people tell them conspiracy theories and they've been skeptical, but now they're not sure. What do I have to say about it? And so I feel very deep sense of responsibility to address these questions in a sensitive way so that the person knows that I care about what they say, but I'll be firm if I have to be firm. Okay, no, it probably was not a ghost that you saw visiting your bedroom, okay? Or you saw a light in the sky, and what direction in the sky was? Oh, it was in the east? When was that? Oh, it was, 2 months ago? Okay, even though you didn't know what that was, I know what that was, okay? It was the planet Venus, all right? So are we good here? So, and you probably get a lot of those calls when Venus is doing its thing in the evening or in the morning skies. So, so that's the genesis of the book. And I'm delighted to have collected those together and put it into a volume.
And you reference these talks as fireplace talks. We don't have much fireplaces here in Brazil.
Oh, of course, you're in the tropics.
We would call them, yeah, we would call them like a bar talk,
Bar talk. Yeah, you're hanging out.
Yeah, hanging out, right.
Yeah, it's over a beer or over some wine. Yeah.
And let me compliment you once more, because you do have a way to make people feel comfortable around yourself, because when word came out that I was going to talk to you, I told my daughter, she's like 12 years old, and she was so astounded, and she was like really nervous, and she was making me nervous. And in like 20 seconds, you made me feel very comfortable. So that's a natural thing for you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. I can, whatever might be behind that, I don't know for sure, but I care deeply about what the other person is thinking.
So
and when I communicate, I want to make sure that they land on receptors that you have for whatever it is I might be telling you. Otherwise, it's two ships passing in the night, and a person talks down to you, or they talk up to you. There's some mismatch of or some, as we'd say in physics, impedance in the circuitry that prevents a two-way free flow of information. So in one of the letters of the book, a cousin of mine wrote to me saying that when her father died and she had to claim the body was in the funeral home, it had been brought to the funeral home, and she had to identify the body, she tells me flat out she had a conversation with him. I said, but it's a dead body. Yeah, I know, but we had a whole conversation. And so she describes the whole conversation to me. And then she said, well, I know he's dead, but what do you think happened? Now, here's what's interesting, is that the fact that someone takes the effort to write means they're looking for another perspective. They're not just so embedded in what they think is true that they don't need another perspective. They're saying, wait a minute, something's fishy here. Let me keep exploring. And so the people writing have a little bit of skepticism in themselves. And that's a good sign for people. By the way, I do get letters where people are just trying to tell me that they're right and I don't know what I'm talking about. There's some of those, but that's not really a conversation. That's just an angry person. All right. And it's not much you can do with those folks. In fact, I have a few angry letters in the book. There were a few. I don't want to spend the whole book on it because it's not as enlightening as the ones where there's a meeting of minds. But yeah, all kinds of people are out there.
Yeah, and I did read the book, and you talk about life and death and people's fears. So after all you explained about, I was going to ask, is Neil deGrasse Tyson the smartest man on the planet? He can answer anything. Or now, after talking to you, I would add to that, are you the most considerate person in the planet? You know, you have this connection you want to make with people.
Okay, so there's an old saying. I don't know how old it is, but I learned it. Actually, I only learned it only recently, but I'm told it had been around a while. And that is, if you are the smartest person in the room, it's time to change rooms. And I think that's brilliant wisdom there. So I don't think of myself as smart. There's no teacher that would have identified me as such. We have sort of traditional measures of who is smart and who isn't. And you go to school, everyone knows who the smart kids are in the class. Everybody knows, and who the dumb kids are. There's a shuffling of, not shuffling, but there's a ranking that you go through school being fully aware of this. And I was never one of the people who anyone said he's smart. Oh, he'll go far because he's smart. People, the metrics for this are how well do you do on an exam? Do you get very high scores on exams? The system is designed to declare that those are the smart people. And since I was never that, anything that I am is what I continue to build for myself. And so think of how much time people spend in a day doing nothing, okay? And okay, maybe doing nothing for some people is doing something. They have to clear their head. So I don't want to value judge this. I don't want to overvalue judge it. But let's say you're just waiting on the corner, you're waiting for the bus or for the train, or you're in the airport waiting for the plane. There's time there that you could be thinking or reading or absorbing new information that could give you new perspectives. I once added up how much time that was in my life. And in a year, the interstitial moments, they added up to days and in some cases weeks of waking time where you're otherwise doing nothing. And all I'm telling you is that I fully exploit those interstitial moments. And I try to make sure I'm always learning. And I do give myself some downtime, but that's to recharge so that I can come back with force to continue to learn. And I spend more time reading, learning, paying attention to things I don't agree with than to things that I do. That's the only way you can be pulled out of or stretch whatever box you have made for yourself that you've stepped into. I was once asked, when one of my books got published, and the New York Times asked me, there's a column they have for authors who just got their book published, and it's, what are you reading now? Or what's on your shelf now? Or what's at your bedside? And so I gave the list. And one book was on astrology. One was on conservative government, written during the Cold War, by the way. Another book was on UFOs. And they said, what? Are you a fan of UFO? I didn't know. And are you religious? Are you? And they're thinking that I'm only reading things that agree with some inner philosophy that I have. It was somehow weird for them to imagine that you might read something completely outside of your own box. And that concerned me, because the fact that they were surprised by this meant that most people keep getting books that feed what they already want to be true. And that's not a way to grow your thoughts, your perspectives, and it will stunt wisdom that you should be gleaning as you get older in life. So I don't think I'm smart, not in that traditional sense. I think I pay attention to detail. I care what other people think. I'm an educator. Yeah, as an educator, generally you know more of what you're teaching than anyone in the room. That's the whole point of why that's how that works. But anytime I'm around someone who knows anything more about a subject than I do, I'm 20 questions with them. Okay, I've been to dinner parties and there's someone who studies like birds. Tell me about birds. Okay, how come all the boy birds are pretty and the girl birds are not? Like, you know, the peacock has the, you know, the male has all the feathers and the peahen, what's going on there? How did that? I'd have 100 questions. And so I would use that occasion to not be the smartest person in the room and get some wisdom and insight and knowledge from others who have this expertise. And I think I don't think enough of that goes on. And I don't think I'm special in any way here. I want to make sure I lead a life of learning. Otherwise you ossify at the moment you step down, you came off the steps of the last place you were formally educated. And you've seen that. People step down the steps of high school or college. Well, I'm done with school. And they throw their pages in the air. I'm thinking, you're what? You're happy about this? Your only job was to read and learn. And you're just glad that's all over? That hurts me as an educator because it means my fellow educators are not creating an environment where people should be sad that school is over, not happy.
And especially nowadays with the social media bubbles, it's so much harder to get these different perspectives.
Yes, these bubbles, the other terms for that are you're in a stovepipe where everybody's the same, or I would prefer the more biological evolutionary term. Social media has tribalized people. And, you know, we look back at tribal warfare from long ago, and some people have even called World War I and World War II modern tribal warfare. You know, oh, you're not this country, you don't speak my language, you feel this way and I feel that way, let's kill each other. That's tribal, if anything is tribal. And so I worry that, yes, social media has become an engine of tribalizing our species. And we're still adolescents in the world of the internet. And maybe you have to go through these challenges before we find out the good way to invoke the internet in the service of humanity. So I don't know. It looks bleak right now. I don't know. But you're correct. If you have a certain view and if it's a hobby, sure, you find the other people in the world who have if you like playing chess, you find other chess people you've never met. You can have a good game of chess. All right. I don't think of that as tribalizing. Those are just sort of shared innocent interests. But when you find people who have strong views that are against other people, that's the tribalization that is just dangerous for the health and security of the world.
And that's actually happening as well in science, right? Because the science deniers, they have so much, they are being so vocal nowadays, and they are seducing everybody, right? You have the flat earthers, the anti-vaxxers, and all these tribes, as you said.
Yeah, so that's why I think education, the system, needs to teach science not as a bag of facts, but as a way of learning what is and is not true in the world. And flat earthers, what they all have in common is they have not been trained how to establish what is or is not true in the world. They haven't been trained how to weigh evidence, the quality and volume of evidence of one idea versus another. They don't have that ability. And so they're susceptible. It's the same thing about anti-vaxxers and others. You know, here's an example I'll give, and I want you to totally steal this example and use it. To be in denial of vaccines or the climate change, you know what that's like? That's like gaining weight this week, being angry about it, and then the next week going on a protest saying, I want to repeal the law of gravity. It doesn't work that way. The science is the science, and you don't have the luxury of declaring that you don't want it to be true, because it's true whether or not you believe in
it. And how do you see, let me rein in this subject here with you, and how do you see the planetariums in this context?
So I see planetariums, since You can be 5 years old and walk into a planetarium and be enchanted by what unfolds. So I think planetariums, I think about it, it's probably the most potent first access anyone ever has to science. All right, physics doesn't have this. There's no family particle accelerator that you go visit. There's no, yes, there are museums that have dinosaurs. Sure, you can go see those, but a planetarium is an immersive experience. It may have been the first virtual reality experience there ever was. And because it's immersive, you get the chance to influence people in more ways than just did they read the exhibit copy or did they see something. They get to experience it. It's all around them. And so your capacity to convey a potent message has no equal. So not only that, if you study the universe, it involves, if you're going to explore it with spacecraft, it involves engineering. If you're going to look for life, it involves biology. If you're going to look for other stars, it's astrophysics. If you're going to look on the surfaces of planets, it involves geology. So astrophysics is a gateway science to all the other sciences. And of course, in there, you learn that you need to know math to solve the problems. So I don't know any other subject that has early access that can influence you from a young age to want to become a scientist of any kind of stripe. So I want to use this as an excuse to have people redouble their efforts to make planetariums accessible to everyone. Now, COVID has shut down many planetariums, but we presume that's just temporary. And by the way, you should have more than just the planetarium show. There should be, and I'm sure most planetariums have this, there should be evening stargazing with or without a telescope. There needs to be ways that people can further experience the universe beyond just what happened in the dome. This then becomes a continuing educational exercise for people who are in search of their passion in life.
And since you mentioned the dome, that's what makes us so special, as you said. Do you, as a planetarium, do you have any war stories, any anecdotes of you in the dome?
Well, I do. I had strong thoughts that I kept to myself because other people have strong ideas, and I'm not evangelical in the sense that I don't invest emotion in whether you agree with me about my thoughts or what I say or what I do. I'd like the idea of living in a free country. And if you do have thoughts, I'd want them to be informed. I'd want you to have all the factors at your disposal before you arrive at your opinion or your important decision if you're head of an agency. So with the Hayden Planetarium, when we reopened to the public in the year 2000, we're in our 20th anniversary of our new facility. At that time, unidirectional seating was all the rage in planetarium layouts. And all old planetariums had a dome, and it was concentric seating. So if you were to program a planetarium show, you had to be equally aware that somebody might be facing in the exact opposite direction that you want. So that put an extra challenge on creating such shows. All of that went away when they said, let's just make a dome where the sweet spot is right in front of everyone, but it still goes over your head, right? But it just doesn't go directly behind you. Or if it does, we're not going to put anything interesting there. Thus began the unidirectional seating. This occurred at a great cost to seating capacity because the seating now does not honor the geometry of the circular room. So it cuts seating in thirds, okay? If you otherwise could hold 300, you could fit 100 seats. In small towns, not a big problem. In New York City, that matters, all right? We sometimes have, we have 1 million people come through a year to the planetarium. And if you divide that out, what is that? That's, 100,000 a month. And so it's 20,000 a day. Is that right? No, 100,000 a month, but by 30, what is it? It's 10, do the math,
6,000, yeah.
by 30, so that's it's thousands a day, okay? And so you can't just put in 100 people at a time. It just doesn't work. So that's the practical side of that. But for me, the more important part of it was, if everyone faces the same direction, that's psychologically no different from a movie theater, where everyone faces the same direction. And you know something? The movies have $100 million budgets, and planetariums don't. So the moment you forfeit a complete concentric show, concentrically seated show, you are giving up the one thing about planetariums that makes them unique compared to all other theater experiences that people have. And I was not prepared to give that up. So we kept the concentric seating. It means the programming has to be a little more creative. So in fact, we had some fun moments where we start at the bottom of the ocean, where you have the black smokers, where you have the geothermal environments, biological environment. We started down there and you're underwater and you look around and you see the black smokers all around you. And then we ascend and the camera view ascends and you can see sunlight at the top of the water. And you see, and you get closer and closer, and then you plunge up through the water, and then you bob and you look around. You're not going to do that if you're facing one direction. You wouldn't have even thought to have programmed that. So yes, it's harder and you have to be more creative, but we have preserved the uniqueness of a planetarium experience by doing so. And I felt strongly about this for our own place, but I didn't go public on that. I didn't say, you should change. No, because you do what you want to do. So that's, if you want to think of that as a bit of advice or wisdom, that was my advice and wisdom.
Olá, sou eu de novo aqui. Para quem não está cansado de ouvir a minha voz, depois de quase 1 hora desse privilégio que foi a entrevista com o Dr. Tyson, eu estou de volta, Alexandre Sherman, astrônomo do Rio de Janeiro, vice-presidente da ABP, para falar um pouquinho de como que essa entrevista surgiu nas nossas vidas, né? O Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson é o diretor do Planetário de Nova York e ele é uma inspiração, uma lenda, ele é um ídolo na comunidade de planetários, na comunidade científica em geral. Ele é seguramente o astrônomo mais famoso do mundo e possivelmente o cientista mais famoso do mundo, né? Ele tem um trabalho de divulgação muito, muito forte, além de toda a pesquisa que ele faz, e ele tem uma produção literária muito extensa. E o livro mais recente dele, Respostas de um Astrofísico, está sendo lançado agora, aqui no Brasil, pela editora Record, numa edição primorosa. Eu sou suspeito para falar, porque vocês perceberam, se vocês assistiram a entrevista todinha, eu faço parte da equipe que produziu essa belezura que está aqui na minha mão. O livro foi escrito pelo Neil, a tradução para o português foi feita pelo Nicolas Petengil, e ficou sob minha responsabilidade a revisão técnica, né? O que é ser uma revisão técnica, afinal de contas, né, para que precisa fazer revisão técnica de um livro do Neil deGrasse Tyson? Bom, primeiro que a revisão técnica não é do livro do Neil deGrasse Tyson, é da tradução para o português do livro do Neil deGrasse Tyson. Eu sou astrônomo, eu tenho doutorado em física, mas eu não tenho uma formação na área de letras. O Nicolas, que fez a tradução, é o oposto. Ele sabe tudo de inglês, mas não necessariamente tem uma formação científica. Então fica a cargo do tradutor fazer, obviamente, a tradução e depois entregar esse original no novo idioma para alguém que entenda do assunto, para ver se alguma coisa não ficou perdida aí na tradução. Às vezes, muito raramente, como foi o caso, como vocês viram aí na entrevista, a gente ainda pega assim alguma coisa equivocada no original. E aí é bom, porque está todo mundo aberto a colaborações, né? Ninguém sabe tudo, ninguém é dono da verdade. Então, como vocês viram aí, o Neil falou, eles tiveram que parar a produção no mundo inteiro para consertar um detalhezinho sobre partículas elementares lá que estava um pouquinho equivocado, né? Estava diferente do que era para ser. Mas, como eu ia dizendo, a editora Record me convidou para fazer essa revisão técnica, que é um trabalho que eu gosto muito de fazer. Eu fico muito feliz de colaborar e o resultado dessa colaboração vocês já conhecem. Vou mostrar mais uma vez esse volume aqui, capa dura, papel bonito, elegante, fica bonito na sua estante, fica bonito para o seu conhecimento. O livro Respostas de um Astrofísico, onde o Neil deGrasse Tyson coleciona, né? Ele reúne várias correspondências dele com pessoas, né? Pessoas anônimas, pessoas que ele não conhecia originalmente, que sentiram a vontade de mandar para eles alguns questionamentos. Alguns são questionamentos sobre ciência, alguns são questionamentos sobre a vida de um modo geral, e alguns são questionamentos sobre coisas muito mais profundas, existenciais. E ele super paciente, ele super acolhedor, recebeu todas essas perguntas, passou um tempo para responder, e ao longo de anos e anos e anos foi guardando isso até que ele resolveu publicar esse volume, colecionando, reunindo aí as cartas que ele achou mais relevantes, as cartas que ele achou mais relevantes. Enfim, é uma leitura que eu recomendo bastante para quem quer ver um outro lado da ciência e de um cientista. Mais uma última vez, fica a dica de leitura, o novo livro do Neil deGrasse Tyson, Respostas de um Astrofísico, edição da editora Record aqui no Brasil. Vá à livraria local, compre pela internet, direto com a editora ou no site que você preferir, mas não deixe de ter esse livro na sua coleção. Você gosta de ciência, gosta de planetários? Vem com a gente, vem com a ABP.